Hi there, I'm Coda, and welcome to the channel. So check it out, I rearranged my room. This space is a lot easier to work with. There's a lot more open space. It's really nice. It's a big change from that sort of hallway sort of feel that was before. So I'm really enjoying it. It's been really nice having all this space. At some point I'm going to do a studio tour. This isn't how it's going to be completely yet. It's still a continuous process, and it doesn't feel like it's in any state of being done yet. So once I feel like it's sort of a little bit more finished than it is now, I'll do a little studio tour. So with that out of the way, today we're talking about guitar tunings. So I'm ditching the pause for this. So guitars, if you're not too familiar with them, they have 6 strings, and they are usually tuned to very specific pitches. So for a normal guitar, that is E, A, D, G, B, E. And with those set tunings, you know the fingering for, say, a G chord. So technically the strings are tuned a fourth apart, except for the G and B strings, which are the, if I can touch them, they are the 4th and 5th string. So those are tuned a major third apart. And that's just sort of a weird thing that evolved over the centuries to become what our standard tuning is today. So the guitar is among the group of string instruments that are known as tuned in fourths, which means primarily the intervals between the strings are fourths. Now this is really, really important in how the instrument plays in general. So for example, a violin is tuned not in fourths, but in fifths. And a violin takes completely different fingerings, and it takes really, really different technique to play. And a large part of that is because the strings are tuned to a different interval. So therefore, interactions between how your fingers move on the fingerboard / fretboard are different. Now, while all instruments have standard tunings, there are many, including guitar, that people have messed around with over the years and created alternate tunings. And this simply means they've changed the notes that the individual strings are tuned to. So one of my favorites, which is what this guitar is usually tuned in, but it's not in now for reasons that will be explained later in this video. This guitar is usually tuned in a tuning called Dadgad, in which it's tuned D, A, D, G, A, D. Now this tuning sort of switches how the instrument feels to play, and it also changes how it sounds. I enjoy the chords that Dadgad creates, and it's very inspiring sometimes to switch it up. So what did we just say? Violin has a different tuning than guitar does, but you can change the tuning on a guitar. So that begs the question, when does detuning a guitar become a different instrument? Put a pin in that for a moment. So for most of the time that I've been in the furry fandom, and since way before I got Coda, I've been involved in a Discord, which is a sort of writing Discord. And this particular Discord is in charge of the Hayven Celestia universe. And basically what this is it's just this science fiction universe that is made up of various species that are furry. Now this Discord was originally dedicated to producing the book Tales of Hayven Celestia, which is a big anthology of these different short stories. Definitely check that out, I'll link it in the description. But ultimately it's sort of continued on after the publication as sort of a place to discuss upcoming stories. Now my creative writing skills are still in their infancy, so I wasn't quite able to make it into the anthology, but I have contributed to the story in other ways. And one of those was expanding upon the musical instruments that were proposed in many of the books. Now, particularly recently, I have been looking at this instrument called the Durembo. And this instrument is a small instrument, smaller than a guitar, usually, but it is a fretted lute, and it's sort of nylon stringed. It's similar to a lute. This right here is the only picture of one that is currently canon, drawn by Rick Griffin. So essentially, over the past 6 months or so, I've looked at this instrument and basically compiled a list of how I would design it if it were to be in real life. So a little while ago, I drew up this is a rough sheet of basically the ideas that I wanted to convey and how I wanted it to look in general. And I have made a couple of changes to this in the design that I will show you, but this is fundamentally what it's going to look like. So the image that I got from this instrument was one that was very, very widely varied. There are all sorts of different versions of the Darembo that are out there, because their species is in diaspora. They're scattered amongst the stars as slaves. So because of this, they don't really have much communication as a whole species. So therefore, depending on where they are in the galaxy, even what ship they're on, the culture will differ quite a bit. So this design that I came up was a design of a Darembo, not the Darembo. And really, whatever the Darembo is depends on where you are. So, what I'm sure you've guessed by now is I decided to restring my guitar in this tuning that I developed, the Darembo tuning. So here it is. This guitar is tuned in a Darembo tuning. So I have a bass note on the bottom, which you probably can't hear, but and then it alternates coming out. I don't know if you can hear that. But basically, what that is in the tuning that I mentioned earlier, Dadgad, D-A-D-G-A-D, except it is with the last 5 strings alternating in and out, in an outward pattern. So I could say a lot more about the style that I want this instrument to have, or all that stuff, but that's not really important right now. So for now, let's go back to our earlier point. What I've done here, have I just retuned a guitar, or have I built a separate instrument? So according to Wikipedia, a musical instrument is a device created or adapted to make musical sounds. In principle, any object that produces sound may be considered a musical instrument. It is through purpose that the object becomes a musical instrument. Now, this isn't the best definition for what we're looking at here, but I feel like it's a definition that fits. My conclusion on this aspect is, really, if I say it's a separate musical instrument, or if you say it's a separate musical instrument, what you have done is exactly what you set out to do. You've made a musical instrument. People think of musical instruments as these very defined things. This is a saxophone. This is a guitar. But really, it's a little bit more like machining. Every machine has a different purpose. It has a different method of working. And there really isn't a distinct line, or there's very rarely a distinct line, between this is one distinct type of machine and this is the other distinct type of machine. So basically, yes, I have made an instrument here. The Darembo is a real thing now, and that makes me really, really happy. So as I said, I'm not perfectly happy with it yet. There are some really odd playing styles, and I haven't really come up with anything, and of course I won't be able to come up with a playing style because playing styles are developed over years by hundreds and hundreds of players. And obviously not hundreds and hundreds of people will be playing this instrument, unless you want to. But I have a lot more plans for it, and this is not the last that you have heard of this instrument. But really, you haven't heard anything of it now. Because truly, the judge of this is, how do you think it sounds? So basically, without further ado, I'm just going to play it a little bit for you. So thank you for listening to me rant. Like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed the first ever recording of a Darembo. Thanks. Bye.
you.